From a crime lord strangled with his own chain, to a Jedi general who burns through his own soldiers, to a would-be ruler who watches his entire worldview collapse in a single duel. In this video, we're counting down the Star Wars characters whose deaths didn't feel tragic, not heroic, not unfair, but like a bill the universe finally decided to collect. And we're starting with one of the most repulsive gangsters in the entire galaxy, Jabba the Hutt. Jabba was one of the most powerful crime lords in Star Wars. He controlled smuggling routes. He employed the most dangerous bounty hunters in the galaxy, and he ran his empire with roughly the same moral compass as a mix between a slave owner, a extortionist, and a career criminal. Han Solo spent almost a year as carbonite decor in his palace, not a prisoner decor. Jabba treated people like furniture. And Leia, he kept her in chains, on a leash, as a personal symbol that he owned her. For entertainment, he fed people to his rancor. And when Luke finally killed the beast, something remarkable happened. Jabba wept, not for the victims, not for the slaves, not for the people whose lives he had destroyed, for the rancor. That pretty much says everything about his character, which is why his ending is one of the most satisfying moments in the entire saga. Leia took the same chain Jabba had used to control her and strangled him with it. Jabba spent years degrading everyone around him. Then he was taken down by the exact person he had underestimated the most. Sometimes justice writes its own best punchlines. Pong Krell. If you've seen Clone Wars, you already know why this guy's on the list, and if you haven't, picture a Jedi. Now make him the worst commanding officer in the galaxy. Pong Krell was a Jedi general during the Battle of Umbara. Under his command, clone soldiers died by the hundreds. Not because the mission was impossible, but because Krell treated his men like disposable parts. He sent them into hopeless frontal assaults, let them die for meaningless objectives, and then made a decision that was extraordinarily cruel, even by Clone Wars standards. He deliberately sent 2 clone units to fight each other, on purpose. The soldiers didn't even know they were shooting their own brothers. They thought they were fighting the enemy. When the truth came out, the rage was understandable, but the worst was still to come. When the clones confronted him, Krell confessed everything. He wanted to defect to Count Dooku. He wanted to become a Sith. The clone soldiers were nothing more than a career project, a cover letter with bodies as the attachment. The problem, the clones had had enough. Dogma, the most obedient soldier in the entire unit, pulled the trigger. Pong Krell wasn't killed by a Sith, not by a Jedi, but by the men he had spent his life treating as expendable. Newt Gunray. Newt Gunray was Viceroy of the Trade Federation, which sounds impressive, until you realize his greatest skill was hiding behind more dangerous people. His first major move, the blockade of Naboo. An entire planet was economically cut off. People were meant to starve. A humanitarian catastrophe was looming. Why? Over tax disputes. Most people write angry emails. Newt Gunray started a war. It didn't get better from there. He backed the separatists, he funded assassination attempts, and he spent most of his time hiding behind battle droids, especially behind Darth Sidious. That worked surprisingly well, until the end of Revenge of the Sith. While Gunray waited on Mustafar to be rewarded for his loyalty, Darth Vader showed up instead with a lightsaber. Gunray had spent years helping build a dictatorship. In the end, that same dictatorship disposed of him. General Grievous. General Grievous desperately wanted to be remembered as the greatest Jedi hunter of his time. And technically, he pulled it off. His hobby was collecting the lightsabers of slain Jedi, which has roughly the same energy as someone who builds their entire personality around hunting trophies. Grievous commanded droid armies, terrorized the Republic, and developed a remarkable talent for disappearing at exactly the moment a fight started going against him. Courageous, he was not. Loud, he absolutely was. In Revenge of the Sith, the bill finally came due. Obi-Wan tracked him down to Utapau. A long fight followed. Sabers, explosions, chase sequences, everything you could ask for, but in the end, Grievous' armor cracked open. His organic organs were exposed, and then something beautiful happened. The great Jedi Slayer, the collector of countless lightsabers, the terror of the Republic, was killed by his own blaster. Obi-Wan pulled it toward himself with the Force and shot him directly in the heart. Seconds later, he looked at the smoldering remains and said, "So uncivilized." A perfect summary of General Grievous, Count Dooku. Count Dooku is a special case because his death wasn't just deserved, it was predictable. Dooku was once a Jedi, intelligent, charismatic, and honestly not wrong in his criticism of the Republic. Then he made the worst career decision in the galaxy. He became the apprentice of Darth Sidious. The problem, Sidious treats apprentices the way other people treat old smartphones. The moment a better model comes along, they get replaced. Dooku knew this. He knew the rule of two. He knew what had happened to Darth Maul, and still he was convinced he would be the exception. Then Anakin Skywalker showed up. During their duel, Dooku lost both hands and lay defeated before his master. Palpatine watched, smiled, and told Anakin to kill him. In that moment, Dooku finally understood the truth. He had never been a partner, never an heir, never irreplaceable. He was simply the current favorite. Anakin decapitated him seconds later. Dooku had spent years manipulating everyone around him. Then he met the one man in the galaxy who was better at it, Pre Vizsla. Pre Vizsla was the leader of Death Watch, a group of Mandalorian extremists who believed every political problem could be solved with enough violence. Vizsla despised the peaceful government of Mandalore. He wanted the old ways back. Warriors, conquest, rule through strength, and of course he saw himself at the top. For years, he organized terrorist attacks, coup attempts, assassinations, and justified all of it with the same argument. The strong deserve power. The weak do not. That was his entire worldview. Then Darth Maul showed up. At first, the partnership worked beautifully. Together, they toppled the government. Together, they seized control of Mandalore. For a brief moment, Vizsla seemed to have won. Then Maul did what Sith always do. He wanted everything for himself. When Vizsla objected, Maul challenged him officially in front of witnesses under Mandalorian law in a fair fight. Exactly the rules Vizsla had invoked his entire life. The duel was brutal. Vizsla fought with everything he had: blasters, rockets, the darksaber. Maul beat him anyway. When Vizsla lay on the ground, everyone in the room knew what was coming next, even Vizsla himself. But to his credit, he didn't beg for mercy. Seconds later, Maul decapitated him. Pre Vizsla spent his entire life claiming that only strength matters. Then he met someone stronger. Orson Krennic. Orson Krennic earns his spot on this list for the irony alone. This man spent his entire career taking credit for things other people had built. The Death Star was based on the work of Galen Erso. Krennic managed the project, and then acted like he'd personally installed every single bolt himself. For years, he fought for power, influence, and recognition. Then, the Death Star was finally complete, and Tarkin immediately started taking control away from him. That should have been a warning. It wasn't. When Krennic traveled to Scarif to stop the rebels, he still believed he had everything under control. Then the Death Star appeared above the planet. The weapon he had boasted about for years, the weapon that had built his career, the weapon he considered his legacy, and it fired directly at him. Orson Krennic spent years stealing the glory of other people's work. In the end, he was erased by his own masterpiece.